Hey guys, welcome back. Look what we got in here today. Gorgeous old 56 Buick Special. Now it's a 4-door, you know. A lot of people, you know, only like 2 doors, but this is just a cool old survivor car. I don't believe it's been restored. It's just a neat old survivor, and it's just got some art, you know, some such cool Art Deco 50s features. Like, I mean, check out the tail lights. Just like what a piece of chrome work, and they're just like the size of them. Yeah, I hate to imagine what that would cost to produce today. You know, you've got the massive bumpers, you've got the exhaust coming out through the bumpers. This is just a seriously cool old car. Gorgeous colours, that kind of, I'm not quite sure what the name, it's not really a salmon pink, but it's definitely a pastel kind of colour. Huge big hubcaps on it, wheel covers, and you look at the inside of it. This is period correct upholstery. Great shape. You know, the door panels are showing a few little signs of age, but it's not a new car. You know, it's just, I mean, this is all original colour. This will be original paint. You know, it's probably been showing signs of a repaint at some point, a few little bits of overspray on a few little bits of trim, but really just a neat old car. It's got, now I think that is, yeah, that's a tissue box, I believe, which was a little factory accessory or dealer supplied accessory thing. You can get the little tissue boxes, but look at the chrome and the bling on that dashboard. That centre grille panel for the speaker. Fully padded dash, which was a bit of a safety feature, which they were just starting to kind of think about in the 50s. You know, just stop, because there's no seat belts, not even any provision for seat belts. So yeah, like if you hit something, whoever's in that front seat kind of face planted the dashboard. So a little bit of padding helped. Don't know that it saved you, but it helped. Yeah, it's got the portholes. The Super and the Roadmaster of these had the 4 ports. The Specials had 3. And yeah, it's great. We've got, you know, the pedestrian friendly hood ornament here, which is, you know, that's an airplane. That's a jet plane. You see the tail fin on it here. But imagine going over the hood of this thing. That would just gut you like a fish. But, you know, that's how it was in that. And look at that grille. I mean, can you imagine going to advanced plating and saying, here, chrome this for me? You need a second mortgage to get that chrome. And the size of these Dagmars. I'm not sure whether they call them Dagmars on the Buick. I know they did on the Cadillacs. And they're a little bit different to the Cadillac. But the sheer size of these things. And they stick out, you know, this far from the bumper. It's just fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. Gorgeous. And yeah, I'm going to forgive it for being a 4-door, a post car. You know, some will say that's not the most desirable model, but look at that car. That's a desirable car. So we're going to have a quick look under the hood and get it up in the air, see what other stories it's got to tell. So back in a second. So before we dive under the hood, check this out, guys. Like, twin ashtrays. Do you think many people smoked back then? And starting this thing, this is just, for me, just magic. Here's your ignition switch you've got off, on, so it rotates in the opposite direction, and then you go to lock. There is no starter here, and it doesn't have a button. There's no button to start it. You put it in the on position, obviously make sure it's in park, and you roll into the throttle. So if you can zoom in on the pedal a bit there as you go in. There you go. See, that's about, I don't know, 20-25% throttle. It kicks in, the starter motor engages, and away it goes. That is just too cool. So when we dive under the hood, I'll show you how the rest of that works, because it's a tricky little setup. It's really neat. So let's get under the hood. So here's the engine bay. this is nice. This is nice. I mean, that's a lovely clean looking engine. You know, it's not covered in oil. It's all, you know, the correct colour for Buick. You know, it was their own unique colour. There's a couple of things that really caught my eye is this car, and it's an indicator of the car, because see these little black, this is a spark plug cover. You can see the spark plug wires going down in here. Buick made this little cover to pretty the engine up, and these are 9 times out of 10 these are missing, because it made it, you had to undo all this, change the plugs, you know, get the spark plug wires to sit in the right place and try and get that back on. And 9 times out of 10 mechanics they just got tossed, this cover got tossed over the shoulder, and that was that. So it's nice to see one with that on. The other thing that I think is really cool is, look at this exhaust manifold. Like, this is a little piece of art. It's like a header, almost, or a shorty header or something like that. But that's a super cool manifold. It's just pleasant to look at. It's really cool. But as you can see, looking around the engine bay, it's good. It's all as it should be. It hasn't really been screwed around with. Now, that starting feature with the accelerator pedal, I want to show you how that works. So we'll just kind of get in here. It's a neat idea. And I'll just come around behind Steve. So if you get right in close there, you'll see this little gadget here, where you've got a pink wire and a yellow wire. So what happens is, when you lean into the accelerator pedal, it connects a switch connected with the accelerator pedal inside, sends the signal to the starter solenoid. That comes up here through the pink wire, comes across here. There's a little vacuum operated switch in here, and it goes out through the yellow wire and down to the starter solenoid. Now, as soon as the engine fires and starts to develop vacuum, this switch moves in here. The vacuum pulls the little ball in here and disconnects the circuit, so it turns the starter motor off as soon as it pulls a vacuum. And so that's how it's, I mean, if it didn't do that, like, you know, as long as you were using the accelerator pedal, that starter motor would want to be engaged. So as soon as it pulls vacuum, that disconnects, turns the starter motor off. Neat idea. I mean, it didn't last long from all accounts. I'm not sure how many. I know that it had it on the 57 as well as the 56. Either side of that, I mean, maybe one of you guys can put it in the comments, and, you know, that's a little more familiar with that 50s Buick. But yeah, it didn't last an awfully long time. I think it's a neat idea personally, but hey, I'm also a bit of a Buick fan, so yeah, so that's the engine bay. It looks lovely. The original generator, it's in great shape. It's a cool old car. All right, let's get it up in the air and see what the underneath has to offer us. So here we are, up in the air. First thing that kind of jumps out is the tank. We know we got an issue with the sender unit because it's not reading, and I did a couple of quick tests, and it is the sender unit that's the issue. Looking at the tank, it's a little beat up. It's been repaired here. It's kind of had sort of a chewing gum solder job on it. The drain plug's chewed up. Yeah, I really think it's time for a new tank. So that's, you can get them, which is nice. And what they come with, if you come around here, Steve, this tank has a one-piece pipe coming out of the filler net, goes all the way way up there. And what the reproduction tanks are cut off here, and so you cut this off, this old one off here, and you use a rubber sleeve to join it there. There's a rubber joint there, which will make it a lot easier to get in and out in the future, because it's a bit of a task getting that huge long filler net like from under here, but you know, we can manage that. So there's that. We've got lots of cobwebs. She's sat for a while somewhere. Yeah, looking around underneath, it's kind of what you'd expect. It's pretty decent. Like, I mean, that's copped a dent at some point, but hey, it has a bottom in it. They're notorious for rusting out because they want to hold water. You know, so that has a bottom in it. The spare wheel hasn't fallen out, which I've seen that happen. Yeah, so moving forward, we've kind of got the unique, it's not that unique, but it's a GM kind of setup of this era, this mid-50s, this torque tube axle. So basically you've got an enclosed drive shaft. You've got your typical looking rear axle here, and instead of being able to see the U-joint here, it's all inside this kind of bell-shaped tube which runs all the way up to the front. There's a U-joint in there, but they all did it, and the drive shaft is like a solid rod. It's about, I don't know, probably 1.5 inch, 1.75 inch thick bar, and that's your drive shaft. Of course, they weren't dealing with a lot of horsepower and a lot of torque, so you could get away with that. You've got some triangulated stabilizer bars there. It has a panhard bar at the back to keep it locked side to side. So they did actually handle quite well, and as the car accelerates, it really does. This kind of acts like the bottom half of a four-link in a way, or some of those big traction bars you used to see on some of the Camaros. So they actually got a little bit of bite. One thing that I have noticed is that right here, there is supposed to be what they call a thrust mount. You can see the rubber mount here, which holds the transmission up. You see there's 3 holes here, and you can sort of see a bit of a witness mark here where there was something, and there's 4 bolt holes here in the tail shaft housing. Now there is a bracket, like a mount, that goes from there to there, and it controls the thrust, because the only thing that's the only thing that stops it. When you accelerate, the wheels drive forward and push, and it pushes up through the torque tube through to here, and there's a rubber thrust pad that goes, it's meant to be here, and that absorbs the energy coming from the back wheel, pushes it onto this cross member, which is why it's very thick, and drives the car forward. And conversely, when you're braking, slowing down, the back wheels are trying to stop and the rest of the car's trying to go forward, so it pulls on this whole torque tube drive line. So I mean, it was a thing of that era. It obviously wasn't the best way to do it. Things have evolved, and they don't do it that way anymore. But it's a little bit of a concern that this is missing, because now every time you accelerate or brake in this car, all that thrust is on this transmission mount and on the 2 front engine mounts, which are not designed for that load. So we're going to have to locate one of these mounts and get that in there, because what's going to happen, we'll be able to drive it round. I mean, it drove here. But over time, something's going to fail. One or more of these mounts is going to fail, because as you accelerate, everything's pushing forward, and then the rest of the body is trying to catch up. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, we got to do that, find that. It's pretty solid under here. It's had a little bit of a repair up here. You can see someone's put a section of floor pan here and actually pop riveted it in, which is not ideal, but I guess your feet aren't going through. So, but yeah, not a fan of body repairs with rivets, but the customer wants to go ahead and get that fixed, so we will do that at some stage. Moving forward, yeah, this is, I mean, it's an older, I can't even say it's an older restoration, because I don't know that it's been restored. I think it's just a survivor. It's had work done on, obviously. You can see there's new sway bar links have been put in over here. Stuff's been replaced. But it's pretty original, as it was back in '56, fairly antiquated suspension. You got massively long tie bars here, tie rod bars, and it's the old kingpin type suspension, not ball joints. So yeah, it's definitely a earlier '50s technology, even though it's a '56. It's '57s, which is what I've got. They make quite a few changes. They go to ball joint suspension, a few other things like that. They just keep making them better as every year passed. So, but I mean, this is a pretty solid car. This is a pretty solid car. A little bit of rust work on that driver's side floor. Once that's done, you've really got no issues. So this is pretty good. We'll get that mount, we'll get another tank for it, put that in it, it'll be good to go. Yeah, so we'll do those things, we'll drop it down and get it out for a test drive. So we'll be back driving around the block. Right, let's go. Now I just want to show you this quickly. These quarter vent windows, they have a little lock there, And then, how cool is that? I don't know, small things amuse small minds maybe, but I just think that's cool. The transmission on these, the reverse is all the way down. Reverse is there. You got low and drive. So yeah, a little bit different. Big steering wheel. It's got the bar speedo that comes across. It's not a needle that sweeps like normal, like we're used to. This is a real red line just comes across here. And they do that by, there's actually a barrel like about that wide here, and the red is painted in a spiral around it. And as that barrel turns, because you can only see it through the slot, it gives that illusion that it's a red bar going this way, but it's actually on a barrel that's turning that way. If that makes sense. I only know this because I had it all apart on my Buick. Whew. Driving Miss Daisy. This is such a different feel from a 60s car. You're up higher. Yeah, a little bit of clearance in the steering. You can probably get a better look at that speedo here now. That little red orange line comes across, but it's actually the barrel in behind the speedo gauge rotating slowly. But this is so quiet, so smooth. You don't get into a car like this to go somewhere in a hurry. This is all about enjoying the voyage, you know. And I say voyage because it's a little bit like a boat. But that is, you know, people are going to notice you in this car. Yeah, you got to hurt it a little bit. It does want to wander a bit, but it's got the Coca Classic wide white walls on it, which are a cross-ply tyre, which, you know, they just don't ride like a radial. We might try and see if we can't tighten up that steering box just a little bit. It's a little vague. But yeah, I mean, we're just trucking down the road at 55. Brakes really aren't bad. They're not power brakes, but it's not taking a lot of effort. And yes, I'm braking with my left foot. Sorry guys, it's what I do. But you really don't feel the shift, the transmission. It's super smooth. Man, this thing's cool. This would be neat to kind of cruise down Route 66, stay off the interstates, go back some of the old back roads, and have a blast. Have a blast. It does. Handling is not its strong point. I gotta be honest. But you just drive accordingly, you know. It's not. We're not trying to do lap times. We're just trying to cruise. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we just about completed the lap, and I'm loving this car. I think it's great. We're going to do those things that it needed. But I mean, it's a really decent driver now before we even touched it. So we'll just finesse a few of those things we saw underneath and give it back. And I'm sure this is going to give a lot of enjoyable miles to the owner. All right, guys, well, you have a good one, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care.